Open the podcast bay door as hell.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 189 of Welcome to Geektown. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. With another hour-plus deep dive episode, I'll keep the intro short. We're on to episode 4 of Agatha All Along, where after a bit of pre-show banter, which you can hear along with all the other cut material if you're a patron, I finally turned our attention to the topic we came together to discuss. Well, shall we get into the actual show?
Must we?
I mean, we don't have to. If you just want to hang out and talk for...
I'm okay with that, actually. Not that I didn't enjoy the episode. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
The writers continue to make me very happy in most ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this show, and I hope they are able to keep it up. Because I've mentioned this on a few of the deep dives, but it feels like if Marvel TV shows have one weakness, it's their endings.
Yeah, when I was in middle school, I had an English teacher who described me as a rocket ship without enough fuel. When I start a project, I take off and I'm just soaring into the air, and then I just kind of crash and burn. And that's kind of how I feel about most of the Marvel shows, too.
Yeah. Maybe this will be one of the rare exceptions.
That would be lovely.
Fingers crossed.
I certainly hope so. We've got until Halloween to find out.
Yep. Which is coming up fast.
Yeah, no kidding.
But for now, we are on episode 4. If I can't reach you, let my song teach you.
Which is already hinting just from that line that something is up with the story with the ballad, since the version we know and love does not have those lyrics.
The sacred chant version that we are most familiar with does not contain those words. So, yes, something is different this time, and we get some hints about where we'll be focusing with the previously on.
Yes.
Where it's Rio!
And I was so happy
Alice,
when I saw that.
And Alice, and Alice.
Yes. The very first moment, Rio's back, yay!
Yay!
And man, oh man, Alice.
But no Wonderland.
Well, that's arguable.
I don't think we've gotten any direct references to Alice in Wonderland. It's not a witchy property.
No, but it still has that kind of feel of I'm in a weird magical place that's kind of customizing itself to my own hopes and fears, and it's very Wonderland-y. It's Wonderland adjacent.
Wonderland-esque.
Yeah. And right away, Agatha starts off telling us that her suspicions line up with yours and mine from last week by winking at Teen.
Before she winks at Teen, she looks at Sharon, who is lying dead on the ground, and says, "I didn't think you had it in you."
Which is a strange line for that moment.
It is a very strange line. And Teen even asks, "Didn't think who had what in them?" And that's when she winks. And it's like, that's not an answer.
No, she does a lot of non-answering throughout the show, but certainly this episode.
Oh, most definitely. And now we learn some more information about Alice here. Her mother died on the road.
I loved
Not
that double
on
meaning.
The road.
And the subtitles hint that to us immediately because they don't capitalize the road. as they have in every other instance when they're talking about the Witch's Road. But that double meaning is so cool. The way that they hinted at all of this and then paid it off with this story of she died on tour was beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't see it coming.
No.
And that's always the best kind of reveal, is when you don't see it coming, but then you look back and you're like, oh, that makes complete sense.
Right. And we do get a couple of those in this episode.
Oh, yeah. And so again, we have the characters asking the question that I'm asking the TV as I'm watching. So then why are you here if you're not looking for what happened to Mom?
Right. And before we get there, there's this really within the story of her mom dying on tour, there is an important detail, which is she was in a hotel that caught on fire. And that will come up later in this fire-based episode.
Yes.
But
good
yeah,
point.
She said the road would save me from what?
Well, I think we get the answer in this episode.
We do, but Jen is the one who asks, from what?
Yeah, from what?
And leading the audience to the same question.
Well, yeah, I had the same question as soon as she said it.
Same.
So it was like I was saying it at the same time as Jen.
Yeah. And it already at this point feels like it's more than a last week's episode featured Jen. This week's episode is featuring Alice. It's way more than that. This week is very much Alice's episode.
Yeah. But our titular main character, Agatha, wants to swish her cloak and be on their way.
That made me laugh every time she did it, both times I watched. It was awesome.
She loves her outfit. And for good reason.
And, it's one of those stereotypical, when you're wearing a swishy cloak thing, you can have that kind of impact on the world around you. You swish it and say, let's go. Everyone follows, except this time.
No, not so much. Because there's an incomplete coven now. Although one could argue they were always incomplete.
One would argue that, yes. But there is an argument there in character. And once again, Agatha tries to gaslight everybody just to suit her needs.
Yeah.
Burn and brew with Coven
2.
Yeah, she is rewriting the ballad. No.
You
can't get a
good
they
try.
call her on it. No, you can't get away with that. And Lilia says her mother recorded the most popular version of the ballad, so maybe we should ask Alice. Which, of course, leads to go ask Alice. But beyond that, it's very funny to me on a second watch, because we find out later that couplet isn't even in the Lorna version.
Not in the Lorna version, but it is in the Sacred Chant version. So
yes, but that's not the version that Lorna recorded.
Yeah, it's not the version that Alice would know backwards and forwards necessarily.
Exactly.
But Alice completely ignores the question. There's a lot of that going on this episode.
Oh, yes.
And instead asks her own question. How many witches left the road with you last time?
And once again, Agatha dodges. And, I mean, she sort of dodges. She puts up one finger and then kind of turns it around and points to herself, sort of, and doesn't really answer.
My question to myself was, is the reason she doesn't say it out loud is because she's afraid they can tell when she's lying?
Probably. That's a reasonable conclusion. I mean, it's just one of those... Yeah, you're digging a hole and you just keep going.
Yeah, she's not gonna give away that secret this time, but we all see it coming.
Of course. That'll come way later, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably 7 or 8.
Same.
But yeah, the Coven insists, all right, we need a green witch, because Mrs. Hart is dead. And they still call her Mrs. Hart. They never refer to her as Sharon.
Which is strange. considering that everyone other than Agatha thinks of her as Sharon at this point.
Do they?
But
They just, I mean, they always referred to her as Mrs. Hart. She had to keep correcting them.
well, except for, I guess it was Teen at the end of last episode who said
Okay.
Sharon's dead.
That's true.
So yes, we can summon somebody else
Yeah.
to the road?
A quick thought before that. If you recall my theory from last episode that Sharon is going to show up as a spirit guide of some sort, it would be hilarious if we get a Mrs. Hart, Mrs. Hart, Mrs. Hart, da 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 da. And she's like, Sharon. So, as you were about to say, we need a new Green Witch. And so, let's summon one. Before they summon one, Teen has the line, I wish we could go home. And Agatha looks at him with almost an expecting quality. Like, she almost expected him to just back home because he wished for it.
Oh, that's true. That the interpretation that everybody has had of the lyrics from the song has been that when you get to the end of the road, you get a wish of some kind granted.
Mm-hmm.
That is not what the lyrics say. They're talking about glory. Basically, you survived, and that accomplishment is reward enough. And I'm curious what will actually happen in those last 3 episodes when they get to the end of the road.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I wanted to point out with that is the other theory we have about who Teen is Billy. And Billy's power is basically he repeats a wish over and over and it happens. Like he says, take us home, take us home, take us home, take us home. And they're home.
Interesting. But would Agatha know that? I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many question marks for most of the characters throughout this series of what do they know when.
And what are their powers when?
That's true also. I mean, this whole Agatha has no powers and yet she's able to cast this spell in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And she waves her arm around and all of the candles go out, but she has no power. Well, this is back to what Teen said last week about the work of doing manual magic.
Yeah. In D&D terms, they are ritual casters, but not spontaneous spell casters.
Okay. Yeah, that does make sense. That's a important distinction.
So if you have the formula for a specific spell, you can perform it, but it's not a this happens sort of thing. It is we need to put the work in, gather the ingredients we need, say all the right words, and then it happens.
Right, which is why the importance of a spell book, which lo and behold Teen has. But before we get to the spell book,
we're doing a lot of before we do this.
Well, yeah, it's one of those episodes. There's a lot, and it's one of those shows. So much of this show is either foreshadowing or precognition.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's going to be a lot of jumping around.
Yeah, true.
So yes, Teen says, I wish we could go home. And Alice is the one who says, we can't go back.
Which is funny because very soon thereafter, she tries to go back.
She's the one who tries to go back, yes. That was why I brought it up.
But I love this spell here where each of them puts in their ingredients, their wish list.
Yes. Let her be not very annoying and not very political.
And not super political.
And then Alice is, can she bring some Advil?
I mean, Lilia's the only one who's actually wishing for something useful.
Well, yes, and once she's done that, what else is there? Let her be the best at her craft. Okay, how do I enhance that?
May she be smart and not annoying. And also not super political. Jen's is the most selfish, though.
Right.
May she be pleasant looking. Damn. You want eye candy on the road?
Well, I mean, if you're gonna have somebody, you may as well.
And
If you
don't
can
already
wish
have enough
for
of it?
right? And then, of course, sorry, Alice, she might have Advil or not, but you didn't ask.
You didn't. Yeah, she didn't bring any, if she did, she's not handing it out for free.
Right. So they cast their spell, and it takes time. We have to wait. This is gonna be a
Oh, sorry, Alondo.
And Rio crawls out of Mrs. Hart's grave. That brings up questions for me later.
Yes, you have a theory that you told me through instant messaging.
Which was my second theory. This one went through some evolution during my second view of this episode.
Okay.
But yeah, I have a couple theories about Rio, the second of which we'll get to.
I think Rio's first line here of "I was in the neighborhood."
Yeah, there's a few things that build up to it, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah. So, do you want to just get into your theory now?
We can. There's other things in the episode that build up to it, but okay, so Rio came up to the road. She was in the neighborhood. She came out of Sharon's grave. She needs her bodies. Was she collecting Sharon? And then even later than that, way towards the end of the episode, Lilia says he's young, he's strong, and Agatha turns to her and says, don't. And then she turns to Rio and begs,
Yes.
don't. Is Rio death?
I don't think she is. It's definitely an interesting theory. I think it's something a little simpler than that. And I think some of that can tie into the theory that the fans have been discussing for a while. But let's talk about death since we're here.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't have brought it wouldn't even have occurred to me except for two things. The first being your episode about Thanos, where you brought her up.
Yes.
And the second being the recent DC show of the Sandman, in which we had a version of death as a character.
Yes, a personification of death. Both Marvel and DC have their own personifications, which look very different, usually, except that through the humorous writings of Peter David, kind of pointed at them being the same being and choosing the form when, in The Incredible Hulk, one of the supporting cast characters died and came back. And a woman looking like the DC version of Death came up to this character at her wedding and handed her a gift, which was a brush.
Okay.
Because she had a brush with death.
Oh my God. Wow. I love Peter David so much. For those of you who are not familiar, he is such a great author and has such a fantastic sense of humor. I highly recommend his various books. I have not read the comic series that he has written, various runs on, but I have no doubt they're worthwhile too.
Yeah. But yes, back to Death, the personification. She can appear as male or female, but usually presents female. And usually we see her in a purple robe with half a regular face and half a skeleton face.
Interesting.
Now, that's not the image you sent to me.
Right. I did an image search for Marvel Death and came up with a lot of full skeleton faces and one image in particular that looked an awful lot like Rio's costume this episode.
Mm-hmm. And she is Death. She is there in spirit whenever anyone dies. Most people cannot perceive her unless she chooses to make it so, unless you have a very close relationship with death. Either you are about to die or you are someone like Thanos Or another character who has had an intimate relationship with death is Deadpool. Thanos is actually jealous of Deadpool because of their relationship that they have had. And he prevents Deadpool from dying so that they can never be together.
God. Again, so many things about that particular character I love. I strongly suspect that Deadpool would be able to see her regardless of his relationship with the action of death because he's Deadpool.
Right, yeah. More recently, well, I say more recently, but it's now like 20 years ago, the character I mentioned in Incredible Hulk, who died and came back, her name was Marlo Chandler. And she became the wife of Rick Jones, who is Marvel Universe's kind of everyman, who just has been all over the Marvel Universe, connected to various heroes in one way or another. Marlo became Death's host body for a time.
I'm sure that was pleasant.
This was, again, a Peter David written series called Captain Marvel. At the time, Rick was swapping bodies with the son of the original Captain Marvel, Janice Vell. And so they were getting into all sorts of weird adventures. And Death had to take refuge in the body of Marlo Chandler because she was being pursued by yet another would-be lover. While in Marlo's body, she learned more about, like, human emotions and all that sort of stuff. And ever since then, whenever she appears on Earth, she usually takes Marlo's form. So these days, she usually looks like a very tall, buxom redhead.
Okay.
So not what Rio looks like.
No, but that is interesting for something else.
Okay, I guess we'll get there.
It seems that, once again...
So I'm not sure what else to really say about Death. She's Death. She is the person who collects the souls of everyone who dies. Yeah, anything else you want to know about her?
No, it seemed pretty straightforward. That just... My first theory about Rio was that she is an agent of someone down below.
Which is the theory that the rest of the fans are going by. She is...
Which would make sense. As we know with these Marvel shows, you can't end a Marvel show without a battle with a big bad, and who's that big bad gonna be?
Right.
Well, they've already told us the name Mephisto, so that is a reasonable theory, and if that's the case, then they need to have had several people in the group with a personal grudge against him.
Yeah. So Rio shows up, whether she's Blackheart or Death or just Rio, we'll have to wait and see. But the first thing she does is offer a flower to Agatha.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, are we going to get hints about their past relationship in this episode.
Oh man, oh man.
Agatha is not happy to see her.
Oh, she's so pissed. Storms off, doesn't want to talk to anybody, doesn't want to... I want nothing to do with this.
Right. But that gives the rest of the coven an opportunity to get to know Rio here.
Such as it is.
So are you a Green Witch?
I'm less a Green Witch and more
The Green Witch! Oh, I love Aubrey Plaza so much.
Oh, yeah.
The way she skips down the road as they leave. And we get more of the banter between the rest of the coven. Do I hate her or do I want her phone number?
Right? And Agatha hates her. I'd say that goes in the pro column. The way that the in-coven banter is written is so great. And the way that Rio is written and acted, she's essentially reprising her character from Legion, and boy, am I here for it.
Yeah, but it's not too much longer before we hit our next stop on the road.
And of course, Alice's nope,
pass.
She sees the house and instantly turns around. I'm going back, or I'm going around. I'm going anywhere
Anywhere
but
but
in that
here.
house.
Which makes me wonder, does she recognize the house? Is it a
I was wondering
specific...
that as well.
Is it where Lorna recorded?
It would make sense. My first time watching the show, it was like, okay, she just doesn't want to deal with another house.
Right.
Because the last one was semi-traumatic, which it was.
But at the same time, it's the trials. You know the trials is what you're here to face.
Right. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think that she recognizes this specific house. And the path to it is essentially the same as the path to the house in the previous episode, but the house itself is significantly different, both outside and in.
Yes. Starting with the door.
Where we get the waxing moon, the fire phase.
Yeah. And as I suspected from earlier, fire is protection.
And we know that Alice's mom died in a hotel fire. And we already know that the women in her family are cursed.
And in they walk, and once again, their outfits match the location they're now in.
And once again, Teen is the first to speak up about it. He's got the first reaction to the coven's new look. He says, we're an album cover waiting to happen.
Well, before that, Agatha says, like, check me out. So there's a little bit of talk before that. But they're all in 60s and 70s rock outfits. And I think they made at least a couple of fairly specific references to artists. To me, Jen was Donna Summers.
Donna Summers makes sense. My wife, Jen, said that it might have been Minnie Riperton, who was famous for the song Lovin' You.
Okay. Definitely some sort of disco-esque woman for Jen.
Right.
Alice, to me, was Janis Joplin.
Joplin makes sense. I was thinking Yoko Ono.
Okay. The large round glasses, you can find a lot of pictures of Janis wearing those. Sure. And the outfit, to me, said much more nature girl. Yoko tends to dress in very stark, like all white or all black.
Okay. That makes sense. Lilia was Liza Minnelli.
Okay. I was trying to come up with Lilia and Rio. I couldn't come up with anyone specific.
I couldn't come up with anyone for Rio either.
And then Agatha, there are two names that came to mind for Agatha. Grace Slick and Stevie Nicks.
No Cher, huh?
No. I guess I could kind of see Cher, but the arms with the big kind of capey cloak thing.
Which she enjoyed playing with.
Yes. To me, that was very much a Stevie Nicks cover of the Rumors album look.
Okay.
And Grace Slick had the headband and usually dressed in black, and just overall, like, the dark hair and the look looked very much like Grace Slick to me.
Sure. Who did you have for Teen?
Teen, I put down T-Rex.
I'm not familiar.
Most famous song is Bang a Gong.
Oh, okay.
He's in that glam rock, very ostentatious, big furs and, you know, all that sort of thing. And T-Rex, I think, is kind of the prototypical appearance.
Okay. We had written down Sunny.
Oh, okay. That's makes Sonny and Cher a little weird, but
Well.
Are they husband and wife? Mother and child? There's some weird... You're putting some weird psychosexual... But no matter what the specifics are, it's very 60s, 70s pop culture. And they split up and start looking around at the studio. Lilia sees artwork of witches being tortured and killed. She starts crying.
Right. These images that each of the witches are seeing are customized to be disturbing to them personally.
Right. So for Jen, it's masks of demon-like creatures. And I noted the Dutch angle as she was looking at them. The camera
Sure.
tilts to the side and gives that stereotypical something is wrong
Yeah.
appearance. And then Alice gets rock star posters, including her mother.
Which is the same color. The Lorna Wu poster is the same color as Alice's glasses and as the label on the LP later.
And as close as possible, Alice's hair, the streaks.
Right.
It is coral. It is a pink coral color because Lorna Wu and the Coral Shore.
Right.
And again, going back to her comic book version, the title that was carried down through the generation was The August Wu of the Coral Shore. And when Alice took on that mantle, her hair turned from black to coral red, to that shade. So if/when we see these characters get their powers back, I assume that Agatha's purple will be matched by Alice's coral.
That makes sense.
The magic of each individual is color-coded to them.
Yeah. And at this point, we do get what I think is probably two different, separate, individual precognition moments.
Okay, before we get that, there is one couplet here of Lilia saying she was trying to open the road with her concerts, wasn't she? And then Alice says her fans were her coven. And I wrote down, yes to the second, no to the first.
Right.
As we learn later, she was never trying to open the road, but she was using the power of the road to protect her daughter.
Something like that. That's the part of the writing that feels a little iffy to me on this episode, and I'll talk about that when we get there.
It's magic.
Yeah. But yes, I agree with you that these lines are important.
Yeah. And then, yes, your point about Lilia having another magical Tourette's moment.
Which is it? Am I wispy or am I kooky?
Well, a little bit of both, if we're being honest.
And I think that was a separate precog moment than Alice, don't!
Or it is one moment, and whatever happens between there is a very significant event, because it's a banter, and then it's a, oh god, something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
So it either is two separate moments, or it's one moment where something important happens in between the two statements.
I can see that. Hopefully we'll find out.
I assume we're going to. All of these moments have to come back up, I would think. Or at least the great majority of them.
Yeah, I suspect that the biggest ones will. I would not put it past the writers to have some, if not several, of them just be kind of left hanging, and maybe we'll resolve them in a future project. Maybe we won't.
Right.
But having them be a part of the bigger world also does make sense to me.
Yeah, but like I said, at the very least, the great majority of them will be resolved will be seen again within this show.
Yeah. Certainly the ones that are directly related to the other people in the coven.
Mm-hmm. So, Alice don't, for instance.
Yeah.
So now we cut to Agatha and Rio in the booth. And we get one of the second clues towards your theory, or maybe towards the fans' theory. It could go either way.
Right.
It wasn't my choice to show up. Magic took the path of least resistance. It ferried the closest and most appropriate candidate down. Or up.
And again, her delivery is so gorgeous.
Oh,
I love
absolutely. It. Yeah, I'm doing it no justice here.
I did find it interesting that they spelled magic in the arcane way with the K in the subtitles.
Yes.
And they did that later in the episode as well.
Yeah, I did note that also, which separates it from stage magic.
Right. Yeah, this is the real stuff.
If you're doing the real thing, you get an extra letter. So my note was she in hell with her dad Mephisto?
Certainly one of the possibilities. Like I said, that's where my brain went the very first time I watched the episode, and then in later episodes in my second viewing, I was questioning it.
Right.
But I do think that either way, she was being specific about I was lower than this.
Yes, either hell or some death spot.
At the absolute minimum, she was underground in a grave collecting Sharon.
Yeah. And Agatha looks to call a truce, sort of.
Right.
Because she then does her Agatha thing, broadcasting to everyone what Rio's intentions are.
Before she even does that, we get this nice little moment of very clearly these two have a prior relationship that was close enough for Rio to see right through Agatha's crap.
Yes.
When Rio says, "Why did you bring that boy?" And Agatha almost considers telling her, I think, but then she says, "Oh, many hands." And the look Rio gives her, no,
she knows better.
Yeah.
There's something else there.
And then there is this manipulative moment of I'm being very careful to craft the question to get the answer that I know Rio's going to give, and then I'm going to push the button so everyone hears her answer.
Yes. Although the way the answer is worded, it really isn't doing Agatha any favors, except for her response of, "Hey, I'm not that kind of witch anymore."
Right, which I mean
sounds totally fake, and
yes, and she has to know that.
Yeah.
But that's the persona that she wants to give at that moment. But this goes back to that other theory when she's got that microphone on and Rio is giving her spiel of this is what I expect to happen, and she says, "You get your power and I get my bodies."
Yes.
Ugh.
What does a green witch need with bodies?
Right.
To me, that was the biggest moment of, ooh, Joel might be right on this one.
Yes, except Death doesn't care about the bodies.
Well, I took it
other than
as
the context of hitting the floor.
Yeah, I get the dead bodies that I want to collect.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I don't either. And I don't know how the MCU version of Hell works, but it sure sounds like Rio's working for it. And based on this line, she's got herself a quota.
Sorry, Dad, I didn't make my quota this month.
Yeah.
The Avengers just saved too many lives. And the Coven obviously reacts to this revelation, this broadcast. But before anything else can happen, well, Teen once again
kicks things off. And that was one of those things. What I wrote down was that when Teen said, "We're an album cover waiting to happen," last time he said, "It's giving middle-aged second chance at love vibes and I'm here for it." These things combined really do point towards your theory from a couple episodes ago, which is that the road is customizing itself for Teen.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to maybe there's like a riddle or a kickoff for this one too, which, as you say, he kicks off.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. He found the invitation. He finds the Play Me record, which is our most blatant Alice in Wonderland kind of reference.
Yeah.
Drink me, eat me, play me.
I'm sure there's the Who's Tommy reference right here. There's a joke I could make. I'm not sure how to phrase it, though.
And he plays the record that starts the trial. Right when that starts, we get our first music video editing trick here of the tri-cut, 3 different angles on 3 different strips of the television here.
Yeah, it was as soon as Lilia confirms we've been cursed, which I think was very clever writing on the writer's parts of, hey, here's this song that's a protection from a curse spell. Let's play it backwards and have that cause them to be cursed.
Yes. And what I enjoyed in that moment is Alice says, I feel lighter. And that's because she doesn't realize it yet, but the curse is now being shared between them all.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
so
it left her shoulders to go attack Lilia.
Well, it didn't leave her shoulders. It's still there. But
well, the burn scars are still there.
But as Teen says multiple times, the coven shares blessings and burdens alike. And a load shared is a load lightened.
Yeah. There were so many things that happened right in this 30-second span. We've got Lilia saying we've been cursed, and then even the music gives a stinger. Dong! Then we do get that Soderbergh music video split screen thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the, why are you smiling? She's a psycho. And she gives this great grin and nod. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Aw, you know me so well.
And then Teen parallels the previous episode again. Last time it was so the hallucinations seem chill, and this one is maybe this curse isn't so bad.
That's the only thing that isn't pointing to Teen affecting the road, because every time he's like, well, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. It's not gonna be okay.
So yeah, the way that they portray this curse, giving it a personified demon in this episode, is not how I pictured curses working, but it's nifty.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
And when Alice sees what the record is, that's when she realizes, oh, this is my curse.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I also love it when the demon thing starts flying out and somebody says, what is that? And Rio's just chilling on the couch, reading her newspaper. That's the curse.
Yeah, I figured it was an issue of Rolling Stone, but, same thing.
Yeah.
You can't see it closely enough.
And we do get this image of the record. Now, did you pause and look at the record?
I did not. I saw it and saw that it was The Ballad of the Witch's Road by Lorna Wu and the Coral Shore.
There are 5 tracks listed, none of which are the Witch's Road. So it says this is Lorna Wu and the Coral Shore, The Ballad of the Witch's Road. It says side. I thought it said side 2, but it might have been side 1. That part was blurry.
Okay.
The 5 song titles are Mary Mary, Red-Haired Woman, which is what I was saying was interesting earlier.
Yes.
Cinnamon and Sage.
Okay.
Flick of the Wrist, and Swan's Song. And the copyright said Bay Music Records, copyright 1978.
Okay.
It might have been 76, but it was one of those.
All right. So, yeah, 70s rock star. We got the era right. Flick of the Wrist I find funny because that's, God, that would be right around the same time too. Flick of the Wrist, song by Queen, which was released as a double A side with Killer Queen in 1974. So I wonder if this is a cover or if this is an original song.
I don't know. These were the other thing about the record label is that it had parentheses showing who wrote each of these songs. Mary Mary was written by Wu/something. Most of this was really blurry.
Yeah, that's why I didn't really pause it, because it was there so quickly and blurred that I was like, dude, never mind.
Yeah. Red-Haired Woman was too blurry to read. Cinnamon and Sage was just Wu. Flick of the Wrist was written by 2 names I couldn't read, but the first one started with an M and the other one started with an L. That M could have been Mercury.
Yeah, but Flick of the Wrist was just Freddie Mercury. So it was not a Mercury May or a Mercury Deacon, any of the other band
But if
members.
this was a cover, they could have changed some lyrics or something.
That's true.
Giving credit to a second writer. Swan Song was Woo / something that started with an H that could have been Heath, but I'm not sure.
No names, obviously, other than Woo. No names that I recognize as Marvel references. They could be names from the production crew. They could be, just little Easter eggs like that.
Like they did with the dates on the
toe tag. Yeah, the library card.
Library card. That's the words I was looking for. So yeah, we get this record and we get that look on Alice's face, and then suddenly Teen is flung through the window.
Yeah, and that's going to become important later.
It is, but the question is, why was he suddenly flung through the window? This is not how the curse affected anybody else. He thinks it means he's actually a part of the coven now, which does play out when he's a part of the jam band.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe there's another reason. It's hard to say.
Maybe it's because he's not part of the coven.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't get burned like the rest of them do. He gets tossed aside, basically.
Which also could be, I mean, Alice did say the women in my family are cursed. So it could just be that.
And when they conjured the Green Witch, it was all, may she be this, may she be that.
And Teen was the only one who didn't say anything at that point. He was not a part of that spell.
Yeah, they haven't outright stated it, but it feels like in the MCU, witches can only be women.
It feels that way, yes.
But
there's so many question marks.
Yeah.
Among other things, Wanda's kids.
Well, Tommy doesn't have magic powers. He got his uncle's super speed.
Right.
And in Doctor Strange 2, Doctor Strange does draw a line between sorcery and witchcraft. He says, these aren't my kind of spells, this is witchcraft. And we see men and women performing sorcery, so that's not gender bound. But witchcraft certainly seems to be, which then begs the question, what is Teen trying to get out of this?
Yeah. That question has and will come up a lot.
Yeah. But if that's a hard and fast rule, why has no one said to Teen, this isn't happening, buddy?
Sure. And it goes back to Rio's question of Agatha, why did you bother bringing him?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, technically she didn't. She tried to make it so that he wouldn't come.
Yeah, she tried to keep him upstairs.
Through the door because he was running.
And her relationship to the Teen is so weird when you put this episode next to, like, that episode where she basically said, you go upstairs, where she knows the Salem 7 are coming at some point.
Right. Which, going back to the prevalent theory, if she is pretty sure that he is related to the Salem 7, she'll know that he's safe.
But if the Salem 7 aren't actually her grandkids like they are in the comics, and they're just the big bad of this show,
who knows?
Yeah.
More to play out later.
Yes.
Everyone runs into the booth to check on the Teen,
except Jen.
Who once again is... last episode, she was very accusatory of Agatha's self-serving attitude and actions. Who's self-serving now, Jen?
Yeah. I'm just gonna live in this circle forever.
I'm gonna need you to create one of those circles for me right now. And Lilia is one of my favorite characters in the show. I don't play guitar. I studied the zills and the pan flute. Oh, look,
zills. Yeah, We get the conversation where they realize that Lorna's ballad doesn't open the road. It's a protection spell to save her daughter. And the fact that people are always playing it at some point or another just renews that spell over and over again.
And this is one of my biggest problems with this episode.
Okay.
Because I have 2 points of confusion with this version of this ballad. And that is definitely the first one, and probably the bigger one. In what way is this song a protection spell? Looking at the lyrics, from everything I know about witchcraft in every iteration that I've seen it, when you are casting a spell, the words need to be somewhat in line with the intention that you're trying to place into them. This one does not have that. And if her fans are casting the spell whenever they play the record, the words are even more important than the intention, since those people, her coven, quote unquote, doesn't have the same intention to cast the spell. They're just listening to music. So how is this working? It flies in the face of all of these theories of how this is supposed to work. The other problem I have with the song is, how was this so popular? No offense to the Lopez's, but even in 1978, this does not feel like a smash hit. And yet, somehow, somewhere in the world, someone is playing it pretty much at all times. That just doesn't work for me.
Well, I don't think it needs to be constantly played for it to have an effect.
Just needs to be renewed
Yes.
before it wears off.
Yeah, basically. And maybe when it's wearing off, when it hasn't been played for X amount of time, that's when Alice is having particularly crappy days.
Okay, that makes sense. I can buy into that. That works. And yet, how long could this protection spell possibly last? A couple weeks? Maybe a month or two? And then someone else plays it again? This one felt sloppy to me.
Okay. Well, I think these days, especially with streaming and that sort of thing, it would not be unfeasible for this to be played at least once a day somewhere around the world, if it was a popular song. If it was a popular classic rock song,
Okay.
it's being played on some Bob FM, Jack FM. In Eugene, it's Bob.
Oh.
In Southern California, it's Jack FM is the, we play 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. It's...
Yeah. On it, Sirius XM, it's classic rewind.
Yeah. Anyways, so...
Regardless, we're buying into the conceit that
Yes.
this is that popular and it is the spell that they say it is. And
Right.
Agatha recognizes...
This is headcanon, but there could be subliminal underneath the song words.
Okay. Yeah, that I can see that. That's a very late 70s thing to have included. Okay, fine. Headcanon accepted.
But let's get to this performance of it. We've got Teen on guitar, Jen on bass. Since she doesn't play any instruments, she plays bass.
Right.
No offense to all you bass players out there, but that is, unless you're in a band like Rush, where the bass player is one of the primary musicians, but in most cases, the bass is, this is the simple one.
Right.
Lilia finds her zills, as you mentioned.
And her instruments keep changing, which is fantastic.
Yes.
She plays zills, then triangle, then maracas, then tambourine.
Yeah. She's just miscellaneous, simple percussions.
Yeah.
Rio takes drums. Agatha, of course, takes lead vocals.
Mm-hmm.
And Alice is going to be on piano. So you got a message from Aaron earlier, and turns out I got a different message from Aaron on the musical number.
Okay.
because Aaron is, obviously
Musician.
he wrote the theme song, he's a musician. And so he says, gotta toss in some musical perspective. Agatha demands that Alice stop holding back and play that piano like a witch. And once that spotlight is on her playing, Alice finishes the song with no discernible change to her performance.
I noticed that as well.
So, what does it even mean to play like a witch? Not much, apparently. This frustrates me because the solution is obvious. She can just play any other keyboard than piano. Say she's got a B3 organ, and when it's time to step up, she makes a big show of moving the drawbars, like Doctor Who at any control panel, and kicks on the Leslie for some whirling chaos, maybe adds a bit of distortion. It would be such a dramatic change. She could channel the Doors, or Procol Harum, or Deep Purple, or so many others. Or she reaches for a different keyboard, and suddenly it's a massive church organ. And maybe for extra contrast, the first half of the song was on harpsichord, invoking a bit of the Addams Family. She could launch into a wailing synth solo. Why not? There's just so many ways to get spookier, exude power, or both. Or Agatha could have just told her to sing like a witch.
Right.
Personally, I would have made Agatha on keys and made Alice the center of attention because it's her challenge, because the curse attacking wouldn't look as silly if her arms were free to fight back, and most importantly, because Agatha's the least likely of any of them to remember or care where the lyrics are different.
All of which makes total sense. Play Like a Witch could easily have been, hey, there are 3 pianos here, let me cast a spell to play all of them.
Yeah, although, again, these witches don't have the ability to just cast spells in a second like other witches do.
As far as we know, it's unclear what Alice herself can do. We haven't experienced or called out her powers very much.
She puts the circle around them in this episode.
True.
Which is more of a ritualistic sort of thing rather than a wave the hand and you have a magic circle around you.
Right, she is definitely chanting through that.
Yeah, so if she was able to snap her fingers, wave her hand, and suddenly she's playing 3 different pianos, that doesn't fit in with what we've seen of them. But switching to a different instrument or having that original keyboard be a keyboard,
right,
an early synthesizer of some sort, I do think that makes a lot of sense and could have worked very well with the scene.
Or, as Aaron said, just give her a different line.
Yeah. As always, thank you, Aaron, for your input. And remember, listeners, that you can always email me or send me a Facebook message or any of the myriad ways of contacting me to put your own 2 cents in. But getting back to the show, we get more of the music video effects here.
And the more it went on, the more it felt to me like a Meatloaf video.
I mean, it really felt like almost any 70s era promotional video where it's just a performance with cuts and wipes between the different band members. It's a very simple, of its time, pre-MTV music video.
Yeah. And the first time you see it, there's a shot in the corner of the screen in those wipes that between the characters that doesn't make much sense the first time. But later it does make sense. It's very much a close-up on a glass shard with Teen's costume that we later learn is embedded in him from when he was flung through that window.
Yeah, the first time I watched it, I was really confused and thought that something had like popped out of the guitar and stabbed him, or, you know, I was like, what is going on there? And it wasn't until the second viewing that I was like, oh, the glass through the window. It's just he was in shock and hadn't noticed until...
Or maybe he did notice and didn't care because he was in shock.
Yeah.
Any number of things.
Yeah, but the shock passed
yeah.
enough that he was like, oh, right, pain.
Yes.
But he's like, the spell is more important than me right now, and so he keeps playing.
Yeah, he's pretty consistently thinking of the group and not just himself.
Yes, he is the least selfish.
Yeah. Just before the music video started, I don't remember if it was you who asked me or somebody else, but at some point someone asked if the 4 specialties are represented by these other 4 witches, what is Agatha's role?
Right.
And
yeah, that was me.
When Rio asked Agatha for the plan, it reminded me of the TV show Leverage. In that show, they had a team of 5 people, and they had a hitter, they had a hacker, they had a grifter, they had a thief. But in order for them to be a team, they needed to have a mastermind. And that, I think, is Agatha's role in this group.
Okay.
She's the one with the plan.
Yeah. It's just that never gets mentioned in the song.
No. And maybe other covens don't need it, but this one definitely does.
Yeah. It's not fire, earth, air, water, and heart.
With your powers combined.
I like that theory. It makes a lot of sense. And yes, most covens aren't going to need that because they have been brought together naturally and work together as a team naturally. But this coven needs someone to be like, come on, guys. This is what we're doing.
It's time to go.
Yes, absolutely. Switch the cloak, time to go. The room starts to catch fire. We mentioned the stuff with the teen and the glass. And we reach the bridge of the song, which is where we get, if I can't reach you, let my love teach you. Hey, it's the title.
Yeah.
You said you didn't see how this could be a popular song. I do.
No, I didn't. It's not that I didn't think it would be popular. It's that I didn't see it being popular from 1978 all the way through today with enough popularity to be played constantly everywhere in the world.
Okay.
I liked the song too.
Yeah.
I think that it's a very effective 1978 power ballad.
Absolutely. I can see that because thanks to the Covenstead rule, we know that within a 3-mile radius, there's enough witches to form a coven. And from Lorna's popularity, we know that she was on tour and, she probably sold out fairly large shows.
Until 2 years after that tour when she had to sell the catalog in order to keep the house.
Right. But at that point, she probably wasn't making any new songs, But
the catalog had enough value to sell.
Right. The catalog had enough value to sell, and this is basically the song that all witches know. And if there are enough witches in a 3-mile radius to form a coven in any given 3-mile radius, there's a lot of witches out there.
Sure.
There's a decent population of witches, and so I could see those witches who are Lorna Wu fans basically playing that song every day.
Yeah, but for 45 years?
I mean, how often does Stairway to Heaven get played?
Yeah.
As I said, especially now with streaming and YouTube and such.
Sure. And various things that are bringing back the retro.
Yeah.
I mean, Lorna's song could have been on Stranger Things. Who knows?
If only it had been on volume 2 of Peter's mixtape. That would have been planning ahead.
Oh my god.
Just like all of these classic rock tracks, and then this one where everyone's like, what the hell?
What the heck?
I've never heard this song. Where is this from? When is this from? But let's get back to the show here, where the curse physically manifests as this demonic creature. And this is when Alice takes over on lead vocals.
If I can see it, I can kill it.
Yes. And yeah, she kills the curse. If that's what she was looking for, if that's how if that's how the road was supposed to save her, then mission accomplished for Alice. She's done.
Yeah. Which does beg the question, and my brother just texted me as we were recording this. What's left for her? If she makes it all the way to the end of the road, what's she gonna wish for? She's got it.
Well, yeah. And maybe she doesn't have to. Maybe her wish will go to someone else who needs something more. Or maybe she'll just wish for power because, hey, power is always good.
Yeah, but she's a protection witch. That doesn't seem in character.
No, but you do need a certain amount of power to protect people.
Yeah. One option that Aaron pointed out was maybe she'll decide to bring Sharon back, but that doesn't quite feel right.
Yeah, if they had set up more of a relationship between them.
Right. Maybe she'll transition Teen into a woman or change the rules so that he can be a witch. That doesn't feel right either. He says, having established her role as protector, I think she has two options. One, protect the coven from Agatha's wish, whatever that may be. Or two, protect Agatha from Rio, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's a throwaway because Rio's wish is going to be for Agatha's forgiveness.
Okay.
So,
of course, this is all assuming that there is an actual wish at the end.
Yes.
We don't know that yet. All we know is that there is glory at the end.
Right. It's reasonable to assume that somehow Agatha at least will get her power back.
You would think so, yeah.
Whatever that journey means is so unclear.
Yeah. After the curse is lifted, we get the piano lid lifted, which opens to our exit, but then Teen finally passes out from the blood loss that he's been dealing with for the last 5 minutes or so.
Yeah. And Agatha freaks out.
Yes. They take him back to the road. Agatha is desperate to heal him. And Lilia says he's young, he's strong.
And this is when Agatha says to her don't, and then turns to Rio and says don't.
Yeah.
That moment is when it occurred to me that Rio could be death.
Okay. Now, my feeling is, well, I'll get to it in a little bit more. So
Sure.
I have my own theory, but I think a specific scene points more to it.
Okay.
And so we'll get there in a little bit. For now, Jen needs water and moonlight to create a healing potion elixir.
Balm thing.
Yes. And Lilia does another of her tarot card mentions here.
Yeah. 3 of Swords.
This time I looked it up.
Okay.
This card depicts a fundamentally sorrowful experience. Tarot readers suggest this may be in the form of a lost relationship, an accidental death, or some other form of not just depression or malaise, but deeply emotional sorrow.
Yeah. Heartbreak, sorrow, and grief, if you wanted to boil it down, but
yeah,
very, very deep.
Like, say, the loss of a son?
Maybe. And this one, I don't know if this was she had a vision thing, or if it was just I am really familiar with the tarot and that's what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah. Her tarot card mentions don't feel like premonitions as much as just this is what's going on right now.
Maybe. It's hard to say because the first one was definitely in one of those weird psychic moments.
Well,
This
it was
one
coming
didn't
right
feel
out
the
of
same.
it, I think. It was like, I had this big psychic moment and then, 3 of Pentacles. The healing potion works. Lilia is like, hey, look what you did.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the important work that Jen was doing?
I don't know. It's very hard to say because that was an Agatha thing, not a Lilia thing. So did Agatha somehow predict this?
Well, did not necessarily predict it, but even when she doesn't have her power, she still has her knowledge and she still can use it for great effect, obviously.
Sure.
And so Agatha knew she's out there helping people with her potions, even if she's also scamming the muggles.
Sure.
But yeah, Agatha sits and watches over Teen while he's resting, and the rest get to bond around the fire.
Oh god, Jen's backstory, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, we learn a lot about, well, I wouldn't, maybe not a lot, but we definitely learn new pieces of information about each of our coven members here.
Yeah.
Jen was bound by a trap set by some man, was somehow bound by a man without magic.
Yeah. I still don't know how he did it. Bound me without magic.
Yeah.
Again, with the CK.
Yes. And Alice stopped believing in magic after her mom died.
Which is understandable.
Yeah. And and then we get a nice humorous moment with Lilia berating all the rumor mongering about witches.
Mm-hmm.
And the third nipple mention. And Rio pops up.
I'm covered with nipples.
You guys don't
You
have
wanna
extra
see?
nipples? I'm covered in nipples. Want to see? No, we're good, thanks. And then finally Teen wakes up, and we cut back to them, and he asks if Agatha put the sigil on. And at first she says no, but then, as you suspected last episode...
Actually, I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Even the witch who cast the spell is affected by it.
At which point, I did the point at the screen. Called it!
And sigils can't be lifted, but they can be destroyed when they're no longer needed. Who defines when they're no longer needed?
It has to be that definition is a part of the casting.
Mm-hmm.
This sigil will do this thing until that event.
Okay. So it's the caster who decides.
Yeah, it has to be.
And then we get another, hey, what happened to your son?
Yeah, you don't have to know a person's name to know who they are, is her calling out her own suspicions.
Mm-hmm.
And that line, that what really happened to your son, is when we find out that Teen also suspects the same thing.
Yeah, and she just walks away without answering.
Yeah, she slams up her defensive walls.
Yeah, she is not ready to deal with it if it is him.
But she's leaving the door open.
Yes. And back to the bonding circle, Lilia has...
Another precog moment.
Yeah.
You know, we really kind of hated each other at the beginning, but now...
Which, if she hadn't had the after effect of, what? Huh? What are you talking about? That would have
fit into the conversation.
Yeah, it would have felt completely natural.
Yeah.
That one was interesting. It wasn't so out of left field as most of her other ones have been.
Right. And they do appear to be coming with more regularity.
Yeah. You have to wonder, before she joined this coven, how often were they happening?
Yeah. Does make me think that she's going to be the last one tested, other than maybe Agatha.
That would make sense. So who do we have left to test?
Rio.
Yeah. So Rio, then Lilia, then Agatha is our thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe switching those first two, because Rio's, from a storytelling perspective, it doesn't make sense to test her this soon.
Yeah.
And then they start showing their battle scars.
Yes. Agatha took a knitting needle to the elbow from the Daughters of Liberty.
Which, this is a great line.
Yes.
You ever hear of the Daughters of Liberty? No. Exactly. But they did exist. I mean, in our world, not just the Marvel world, there was a group of women who fought for American colonies' independence from Great Britain during the American Revolution, called the Daughters of Liberty.
Yes, but there is also a Marvel Comics collection of women called the Daughters of Liberty that Agatha is a member of.
I wonder if that was the coven that tried to kill her. Well, no, it can't be, because she didn't get a knitting needle to the elbow in that one.
No, but the Daughters of Liberty were preceded by the Daughters of Light, a group of young women in late 18th century Europe that preached freedom, But when their leader was sentenced to death by beheading, one of her followers fled to the colonies and created the Daughters of Liberty. And they were trained in the ways of magic by Agatha Harkness.
Oh my god. Okay.
Other notable members of the Daughters of Liberty include Peggy and Sharon Carter, Spider-Woman, White Tiger, Harriet Tubman,
Okay.
and others, several unnamed members. Again, this is one of those things where it's like, they are pulling from really recent in the comics. Their first appearance is in the Captain America run by Ta-Nehisi Coates and Adam Kubert. Captain America Volume 9, Number 7, released in January 2019.
That's really recent.
Yeah. So, I just love how they do that, how they can pull from 1960s, 1970s, 2019, and weave it all together into something that makes sense.
Yeah, it's great.
So that's the Daughters of Liberty in the comics, but I assume they are very different in that. This is probably the only mention we'll ever get of them
Probably.
in the MCU. So that's Agatha's scar, and then Rio's scar.
Yeah. Again, not subtle.
No.
I have a scar. No, you don't. Which immediately is like,
I've seen all of your body. No, you don't.
well, but there's been time between the last time she saw all of her body. So
Fair enough.
for her to have that kind of confidence indicates to me that she's a being that can't get a scar. Like maybe death?
Okay. Definitely, I could see that with your theory. With my theory, it's more of a, I know you.
Yeah. I'm sure that's it, but I had to throw that out there because it went through my head, and that's what I do. So I have a scar. No, you don't. Yes, I do. A long time ago, I loved someone, and I had to do something I did not want to do, even though it was my job, and it hurt them. She is my scar. Again, this is obviously something we will find out what that thing that she did not want to do was.
Yes.
But I think that all of the clues are pointing toward it having something to do with Agatha's son. Was she what made the exchange between the sun and the Darkhold? Was this a labyrinth trade-off? You know, I wish the Goblin King would come and take you away right now. If Agatha offhandedly said the wrong words, did that force Rio to make an exchange?
So this is where we get into my theory, which is that Rio, for some reason, probably at the behest of her father, had to kill Nicholas.
Right.
That is how she knows that boy isn't yours.
Yeah, that was my theory as well.
Which is what we get in the very next scene. So that's my feeling, is that she is Blackheart. She is the daughter of Mephisto. And she had been in some sort of coven with Agatha, and they were in a relationship. And at some point, something with, like you said, with the deal of getting the Darkhold, something happened, and Rio was forced to kill Nicholas. Or take him away, or...
Yeah, exactly. Or at the very least, take him from Agatha.
Yeah. She got the Darkhold in return for this, but it was not what she wanted.
Right. She may have wanted the Darkhold, but she did not want to pay that particular price.
Yeah.
So yes, the last line of the episode is, Agatha, that boy isn't yours.
Well, and before we get there, this moment, the scene between the two of them is so powerful. So Agatha walks away, Rio walks up to her, and they share this moment, and they almost kiss. It's almost a reconciliation of, I realize that you're hurting as much as I am. And then Rio stops her before the kiss and says, that boy isn't yours.
Which I think is, looking at the characters, that's a very smart move. Not strategically, but relationship-wise. If they had continued and had that kiss without that being out in the open, it would have caused major problems later on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Rio was very smart to make sure that this was out, that that it is the case, and B, that she knew it was the case before anything went further.
Yeah. But Agatha walks away because even though the truth is better to be out there, it's still hurt. And so Rio has hurt her once again.
Yeah.
That relationship is so fraught with
Yeah.
landmines and pressure points where they can poke at each other even unwittingly. It's gonna be the crux of the show, I think. It's gonna be, This is how the story gets resolved, is by their relationship getting resolved.
Absolutely. It is really good stuff.
Yeah. And then we get into the ending credits, which is another non-needle drop, just the standard orchestral music.
And the credits have been shifting and changing the actual credits, not the background images, but who is being credited in each episode, which has not always been the case in various Marvel television products.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, the episodes that Rio wasn't there, Aubrey wasn't listed in the credits.
Right.
And what my wife Jen noticed in the first episode was that Aubrey got the last of those credits. She got an "and" Aubrey Plaza, which good for her.
Yes.
What I noticed in this one was that even next to the credits of "with Patty Lupone," she still got the final "and" credit. Which,
well,
I mean,
once you are being credited that way, you're going to be credited that way throughout the season.
Mm-hmm. It's just an impressive thing for her agent to have negotiated that standing next to Patty.
Yeah, but she's a big actress at this point. She is...
And continuing to grow.
Of the actresses in this show, to a modern audience, she is the biggest name.
Right.
Obviously, Patty Lupone is a classic star, but she is not a name draw.
She's not the draw that Aubrey is right now.
To the great majority of the public, she is not the name.
Yeah, and certainly to the MCU audience.
Right. Yes, which tends to skew a little younger.
Yeah.
We praised the show a bit more after that, but it didn't feel all that vital to our conversation, so I cut it off here. Don't forget that patrons get the full uncut version of our talk, and it's only $1 per month to join. And as I mentioned in the show itself, if you want to share your thoughts on the episodes we've discussed, you can email those or topics you'd like to hear about on future scripted episodes to welcometogeektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Or you can go to the website, welcome to, the number 2 in this case, geektown.com, and click the Submit a Question link if you prefer to remain anonymous. Other contact options include facebook.com/welcometogeektown, Twitter @geektownpodcast, Mastodon @welcometogeektown @mastodon.social, or my preference, Blue Sky @welcometogeektown.bluesky.social. You can also help the show grow by subscribing and giving a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts to join the Geektown City Council, which helps other people find the show so we can all tell them,
Welcome to Geektown. Population, us.
Welcome to Geektown is written, narrated, edited, and produced by me, Kurt Onstead. Theme music is by Aaron Levitz, logo art by Archie Santana. All of their sound clips are the copyrighted material, their respective owners, and no infringement is intended, falling under fair use.